Broadcast live.
Thanks for joining us, man. For everybody that's joining us, we're speaking to Wandisile Nkabinde. He will literally always correct me on the title, head of digital and media, marketing. Yeah, we're just going to speak to him about like everything related to that world, and it's not a rap conversation. He's not going to freestyle. He's not going to bust a new rap joint that he has, but he's the guy that that literally looks at how well culture behaves to integrate it with brands. Wandy, just give me a little background for everyone that's jumping on, just on what you do, and every other day.
I'm currently head of media and digital marketing for a broadcaster. I won't mention who, but I think if anybody would Google, they would find out. So basically what my job entails is drafting strategies and managing strategies for different brands in terms of how and where they show up. So basically a brand will come to myself and we would develop strategies in terms of how they can reach the consumer they want to reach. So if they're targeting females, or if it's a product that's targeting females or males, or it's a sports brand, our job is just to determine where it's best to reach that consumer and how to communicate them and at what thresholds actually. In a very summarized version.
Manje, you talked about things like our consumer and our threshold. Awukhuluma nje isintu nje njenga-out yasefoslo yini lento le ngoba efoslo akuna-threshold.
So I mean, I've always said media is a combination of both art and science. And I think from an art perspective, I think that's what alludes to our conversation a bit more. So from a science perspective, so if brand A says we're launching this product, and we would then say, okay, cool, if you're developing that product, these are the insights. This is what your consumers are doing. Where do they live? This is what your competitors are doing. And based on your strengths and what you're trying to achieve, you can best reach that consumer on digital and TV. And then the thresholds would be like, okay, cool. If you're looking to get about 90% or 60% of your target market, it's going to cost you X on this platform. But if you're going to go into digital, it's going to cost you X amount. And then the art part is a case of, okay, what's the personality of the brand and what message are we trying to land? And then that's when you start looking at more artistic approaches in terms of how you want to drive impact to that target market to stand apart from what everybody else is doing.
So just to put it in simple conversations, basically, I'm a consumer, you're talking about the potential clients. When you're saying that mediums, you're saying that are we either when we go digital, do you mean that you are telling banners, social media, or television or billboards? You see, I know that you live it every other day, so it's easy to talk some of the jargon like people understand it. Do you know what I mean? So but Guti, you still got the hood inside of you. So please.
Of course.
Yeah, so please sometimes just be a little bit more clearer on the detail. You know what I mean?
So I think to put it on layman's terms as best as I possibly can, I'm trying to think of examples here. So in all marketing that you do, right, there are tools that we use to check how many people are watching Uzalo, as an example. So we can see, okay, Uzalo has an X number of millions of people that are watching it, or Isbaya, or the Queen, and so forth. We can determine that using certain tools that are in our laptops and MacBooks and so forth. So when we want to do any form of communication, if you're a clothing brand, you can simply advertise on a TV show like Uzalo and reach millions of people at the same time. When it comes to digital, the world has evolved quite a lot there. Back in the days, there used to be premium buys where you buy banners in a website. So Slick on Life, I buy banners and I'm happy. But the problem with that is that if I'm a female product and a website Gasleka is, I'm not saying that's what's happening, by the way, is being read by mainly male people, it's not a good space to be in. That is why you start hearing of terms like programmatic buying or stuff like Google marketing platforms and so forth. What happens is you go into this machine and say, I want to reach a 19, okay, maybe 21-year-old female who's into sportswear. And then what happens is through Google, we're able to find where those people are and serve them those ads.
So you mean that by finding those people where they are through Google and or busy programmatic, you know, by finding these people, you mean that finding them on the websites that they go to, so you can serve. When you say serving, serve them the advert, basically.
Yeah. So, because remember, your cell phone has your identity. So everything you do on your phone, you're leaving trails, right? You'll notice that a lot of times when you go into a specific website, it will ask you if do you want to accept cookies. So what it means is those cookies will follow you and they'll determine in terms of where you. So everyone has an identity. Google knows probably you more than your family knows you. It knows what you search, living you're at the moment, what stage, knows you into music, what type of music, because by Google, YouTube is part of Google as well. Me being on searching for Slikour on Live, Google is aware that I'm searching that. If I'm watching your videos, it knows. It even knows what type of content I'm watching on a Slikour on Live, sitting on YouTube or sitting on your page. So it's very easy to follow a trail and say, okay, look, if I'm looking for this specific person, what then happens is that it's able to get that specific person that I'm looking for. But you'll have to bid for it, because if I'm this brand and I'm competing with your Nike.
Hold on now. Before you get into bidding, so just for clarity, which would see everybody now that's on their phones, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on a desktop on your phone, Google is able to see that like you watched the video. Yes, yeah, it was click on Live's profile. Then you watched like Casper. Then you watched like Simpure Dana. So Google is able to track everything, every move that you make on digital, basically.
Yeah, we're able to track everything. I mean, remember, people also they save some of these videos on their history. They follow a Casper on Facebook, on Instagram, and so forth. So the whole algorithm just is able to track. It's machine learning pretty much, you know. It's able to track each and every individual, but don't see it as they know you as Usia or Wandisile Nkabinde. You know, it's different codes. So you can get very specific in terms of targeting, but we don't target people by individuals. I will not do a campaign saying I'm targeting you. But I will target your demographic profile as well as some of your psychographic profiles. So for the purpose of this conversation, demographics, from some people that, demographic profile are it's stuff like you are male, you are this age group, this is where you live. It's on the surface type things. And then psychographic profile are your interests, which is a bit more detailed. And this is where you making use of platforms like programmatic buying and using affinity tends to help.
Okay, so if we take two steps backwards, demographic, let's say you're looking for a male like myself who listens to hip hop music, okay, all those things, right? But say that like I'm a male and I fall into that demographic of like a male that listens to hip hop music, but then I'm a parent too. So maybe sometimes I'm gonna go look at what I can buy. It plugs into the psychographics. So music loving father. This guy is a music loving father who's got kids, but he still listens to, like, he's still involved in the J Molly and the big hash battle. Isn't angamelanga azingene ngoba umuntu omdala nje uyaphapha. Understand? So essentially it's able to identify those type of things.
Yeah. So that's what it actually does. That's what the world of digital is able to do. There's a step further to this as well, where other brands and businesses start using things like DMPs. Okay. DMP is a data management platform, right? When you go to macro, imagine yourself as a youngster. First time you go to macro, you're buying books. They have your profile. Next time you buy a TV after 4 years, they can see, oh, you bought a TV. The person has finished school, a 30,000 TV. I'm starting to afford. Next thing, you buy a clothing items for a child, and they can see, oh, okay, so see here now, he's on approximately this income bracket. He has a child, and is into entertainment, and lives in this area because they can see which micro you are at. So that's the data they own. Then what with their data and your profile, I'm trying to speak in layman terms as best as I can. Then when you plug it in, we are able to see, okay, where is Sia normally is in this digital world. We can see, okay, he's very active on Facebook. I'm going to serve him an ad on this new TV set because he's had the one he had for like 6 years. So this brand has a new TV and I'm going to serve it to him. And if there's a specific product for kids, their child is probably this age, I can serve that to him. So it's a case of plugging in Google and plugging in your DMP and determining where you can find this person based on their interest groups. So that's why sometimes you'll find ads follow you. You would be on a website, takealot.com, or a lot of e-commerce sites tend to be very good at this. Then you see that ad on Facebook and you ask yourself, wait, I was on this website, an hour back. Why are they targeting me with the same ad, with the same product? So it's basically tracking pixels. They're ready for you. As soon as you step in there, the trail starts to follow you. So they're going to try to bring you back because they know what you're interested in.
Is that like also what they call a cookie? What's the difference between that and a cookie? Because it's Empire or Amakeko Mfundi. So what's that?
That's what they call it. I mean, think of a cookie when it leaves a trail. I mean, especially those messy ones. But I mean, with all your searches and all these websites you go into, you get tracked a lot, and people will pick it up.
Oh, so a cookie, it's almost like the
fingerprint. See it as a fingerprint. You leave your fingerprint everywhere you go. Get what I'm saying? Yeah.
But definitely cookies also make sense, because if cookies literally like have crumbs, every platform you go to, it's almost like a crumb of your identity, and then they kind of just start following you throughout. That's why they call it a cookie. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And look, there's talks that it might end. I would encourage people to watch The Great Hack on the other broadcaster called, just watch a documentary called The Great Hack. It will explain properly how we target people.
Okay.
Not on
That's
that level, though. We're not on that level, but it's a great explanation in terms of how far can targeting go.
So by the time you see this advert from Zando, from Superbalist, and from all these guys, they've literally been watching you throughout your whole journey, and that's why, you know, I mean, abantu abangazi bathanda ukuthi yo Illuminati basilalele isikhuluma izolo besikhuluma ngalento lena ubheke sevele ku-internet. I've heard people say
Yeah,
things like that, you know.
yeah. I mean, I know a few years ago, I remember brought my sister my laptop and she went, hey, Superbalist, for some reason they thought I'm a late 30s female looking for, some office clothes. And I started getting these ads, my man, of women clothes all over. And it's purely because, once I got into the website and I started making an attempt to purchase a product, they obviously started retargeting me. So retargeting is another word for remarketing. So you see that person was there and they were looking for a female jacket or whatever form of jacket. If they don't complete the purchase, they will retarget you or remarket to you with that product you were interested in on Facebook, or you could be on Sokala Duma website, or you could be on Sowetan website. You will see the product you were trying to buy. And same thing happens with even sites like what do you call this one where you can Airbnb. If you try to book on Airbnb, you've shown interest on a specific property. They've got this thing called sequential targeting. So immediately they come back to try to finish the product.
Don't know. I think that that Superbalist advert that was following you, there's nothing wrong with being a drag queen in a style.
No,
don't hide your inner behavior. There's nothing wrong there. You know, someone is asking you, can they still follow you when you're on an incognito browser?
They should. Look, there's many ways to protect yourself if you don't want that to happen. So, for example, I remember, I think stats that came last year, there's a report, I'll send it to you. It's a hot suit research, which actually places South Africa as one of the highest in terms of people who don't want to accept cookies. And they actually also protecting themselves from digital advertising. And you can block ads if you want to. So to answer that person, yes, if you want to block ads, you can block ads. I mean, even on your cell phone itself, whether you're using iOS or Android, there are some softwares that you can buy where you want to block ads and try to avoid being tracked.
Kambule says, living in a dual economy, how do we use digital if it's possible to effectively gather info to drive campaigns to the base that's not on social, or this only works for people with the digital footprint? I think I understand the question, but I think I understand what he's just trying to say. So most of this tracking is obviously for everybody that's on digital. And do you consider WhatsApp? Because I mean, even WhatsApp is considered as digital also.
Yeah, that's a good point. So SA currently has about 63% internet penetration. We have...
That means 63% of people are using internet.
Yes, in SA.
Yeah, but I'm not penetration. Problem.
63% of, yes, fair enough. And I think in terms of mobile use, we've got the highest mobile use. So meaning people who have cell phones, it's way more than the population we have in SA. I think it's over 100%, it's way higher than that space. So I'm also not too sure if I understood the question you said that you asked, but we in a place where in looking at strategies now, there's stuff like multi-screening. I don't know if the person was alluding to that, where a lot of brands, we're trying to get into a space where we do understand that people don't consume one media at the same time, at a specific point. People don't sit and just watch TV. They normally watch TV while they're on the phone, while they're reading a book, and they're on WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram, right? So now the challenge we have is, okay, cool. How do I make sure that I don't, one, annoy this person, and I catch them at the right time? So there are some softwares that I use to track, for example, when your TVC, a TVC is a TV commercial, is flighting on TV. See how I can see, what am I looking at now?
No, type I want to just pin the thing.
Okay. So yeah, what I was saying to do is that there's a lot of multi-screening softwares that are used to multi-screen across TV and digital, where you can also dual target between billboards as in radio. That one was called Radio Sync, where if you driving and you hear adverts on radio, and you're looking up, you can also see the same ad on a digital billboard, as an example. However, to deal with a lot of these challenges on a digital space, there's what's called attribution, which sits with Google as well. I swear I'm not working for Google, but it's an organization we work quite closely with. So what they do is you can follow a person in terms of their journey and where they are. So when I want to send you an ad, I can make sure that I'm tracking it between, I can see that you saw it on Facebook, and then you went on to reading an article on whatever website, and then you went to YouTube. So we can see how you move to avoid duplicating the efforts that you're doing. Perhaps you can elaborate that question, because we can't hear him, we're not too sure what exactly he meant.
Yeah. And then, someone else, Quinton_, says, how effective is it for South African artists to create an email list in order to communicate with their fans? It's quite popular abroad, but is it worth the time? For people to create an email what?
A
mailing list of your fans.
Sure. That's
because it's just saying that, let's just say you have cookies, and you want to build your fan base. How does that work?
Look, if you want to build a fan base, you can do acquisition. You can buy acquisition easily on social media. So you must be very careful when you're buying social media, whether it's Instagram or it's Twitter or Facebook. Now, you have an option to build your audiences. Literally, all your ads will ask people to follow you back. It's as simple as that. You can do where you want to do a reach type campaign where you are trying to reach as many people as possible. You can do a campaign where you want people to buy a specific product. So you must just make sure that when you buy with these media platforms, you're very specific on what you're trying to do. But buying followers or putting money behind these social platforms for the sake of getting followers does not guarantee you quality followers. You can get followers, but maybe those people are not engaging. And it will not help you, because a lot of us brands, we're looking for people that get engagement. Because having a lot of followers it's starting to lose its currency. Have fair number of followers, but what matters to the most is how many people are actually engaging with you, because it gives you a bit of something to stand on in terms of that subject matter.
Do you, and this is a conversation that I'm asking myself with this whole thing of having a lot of followers versus engagement. Do you also think that like the world is going to change from looking at your followers to, let me just say, I don't have a lot of followers, so you can consider me a micro influencer, but my engagement in a certain topic is macro, you know? So do you think one day we'll start weighting a macro influencer on topic versus on numbers? As in, like, in that conversation, this is he gets this macro engagement. So now I don't look at that guy with 10 million followers, but like in a certain conversation is very micro, you know. Do you think that we'll move one day from that?
No, we are already moving away from that. When I think a lot of brands are doing great work, and they're paying very close attention to trends and what people are talking about, not just on platform, but what's happening on the ground, you know. And engagement has become everything because it's currency. You can buy audiences. As I said, you can buy people to follow you. You can get someone to get you a lot of followers. But engagement comes with creativity, you know. It comes with, and creativity could be on any topic that you specialize on. And brands know that that's not easy to come by, right? You literally have to be a person that's in touch with that topic, and you're very strong on that specific narrative. So my most successful campaigns that I've had are with the micro influencer space and people that have very strong resonance on those narratives. I would go for a person when they tweet a specific verse to their 10,000 followers, a lot of people talk about it, than having a person with millions of followers, when they tweet, it disappears on their timeline. So that tends to build brands a lot better, even from an individual perspective, but we tend to skew towards a person that has stronger engagement rate.
So let me ask a question, and this is maybe a personal question for me, you know. No.
Personal to you or to me?
No, to you. Usbuda has already asked if he can send a proposal, so I'm not going to ask that one, you know.
Shout out to Buddha. Hey, Buddha is abusive,
So,
I love you, man.
I'll come to a question of me where I go, it's a personal question, like I say, you know. If I've never prioritized like social media engagement or likes as a platform, right? But like, because I've always said that like my view is that I don't own those platforms. So even if I've got 300 comments, it's neither here nor there for me personally. And then I look at things like but like the engagement of the content, let's say on my platform, I could probably have like 15,000 or 16,000 people on the platform in one day. You know what I mean? And I weight things on that value that like, not only have I gotten these 1,000, 10,000 likes on Instagram, but I've literally made someone click through because when you get a like and engagement, you are actually commenting on a platform that you by default were on. You never jumped on that platform for slick. You never jumped on it for whoever's the biggest. You were just there because you were browsing. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things of like, you know, when you show the value of, yes, I've got a pool of engagement versus on a platform that's independent versus like a social media page. Where's the value, and how do you actually like create value in that and communicate that type of value?
It's a tricky one, yeah, well, because so if value now kind of it's quite subjective, and it boils down to what the brand is actually looking for at the end of the day. And I can't speak for every single brand that's out there. It depends what you actually trying to achieve with what you're running at a time. I do encourage what you're doing in terms of owning the engagement in your own space. Look, I'll be frank. I mean, I'm very supportive, Mina, of our own platforms as a country. You know, obviously, there's been some flags with other guys that we're spending. I think about 60% of digital money goes to platforms like Facebook and Google, you know, if not more, you know. And I saw Sean Jordan on this chat, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of money goes there. And we are aware of that as some of the senior guys, obviously in marketing, that we need to keep the money home. And if we don't invest accordingly to platforms like yourself, we're not going to build, because if you do well, you do more, you know. So how you demonstrate a lot of value. Some brands, it's awareness. Some brands, it's engagement. Some brands, it's sales. You know, in my previous role where I was, which was a bank, sales was quite important, and lead generation was quite key. And for everyone's purpose, lead generation is just you filling in a form that you want to open a bank account and press submit. That was important. And we had other ways to get those leads rather than me investing on a Slikour online, you know, platform. But if I want to build a brand, I want to build a brand's credibility, there's a specific story I want to tell, I can't do that through a banner. You know, I can't do that through just a video ad on Facebook. You know, there's partnerships that you need to get into, and there's a lot of guys like yourselves and others, obviously, that I won't mention at this current stage, where you sit and you talk about how you can potentially build a brand, because those guys understand their audiences, Nami, and understand my consumers. And then we're trying to find a synergy in how we can possibly make it work.
Okay. So while you are drinking your sparkling water, Uda Crook says, Wandi, please break down engagement and what brands really look for. Do you guys look at specifically likes, comments, or impressions? I mean, this is a big question. But while you at it, Uba Sean Jordan, Melena is sending my proposal.
Sean is he runs an agency called Hura, and they normally get into a JV with the Odd Number. So he's a founder of Hura, very smart guy. No, please send them. I'll send you his email address.
You just got yourself in trouble with all your insights here.
The Crook. Oh man, shout out. So engagement, and generally engagement is what he said. It is likes, it is comments, it is shares. But a share obviously counts a lot more stronger. So what we then do is, engagement on its own is not enough. as a brand, you can get lots of engagements. I worked on a food brand where we got lots of engagements, but there were a lot of other times they were quite negative. So as much as you can get likes, comments, shares, maybe people are not talking nice things about you. So then it's meaningless, you know? So then we start looking into what the sentiment is. And preferably you want a very positive sentiment. So a sentiment can be positive or negative. So if a person is very high engagement, that is positive, then that's a good space. Yeah, well. So the crew could be traveling in Turkey, doing his own thing. But people, and wherever he tweets, you know, whether he's shopping and doing all those things and posting, and people are talking other stuff unrelated to what he's doing there, then it's meaningless engagement to everyone. But if he's shopping and people want to know what card he's using to swipe, you know, a bank would be like, wait, we've got a travel card. Maybe we can work with this guy. Then when he swipes, he's using our travel card. You get what I'm saying? If you're a broadcaster, hey, he misses local content. He's watching our stuff. If it's those type of things. And when people start asking those relevant questions, it starts making sense for the brand.
With that being said, you know, I just wanted to just double check something also here. If you are, and I just want to go through some of the questions, yeah, quickly, and just read some of the stuff, because I mean, we've got like great people here. Prince is here also giving his input, you know. He's basically saying, he was saying something. He was saying Facebook delivers awareness similar to TV, and Facebook literally like delivers mass awareness. I've always said Facebook is the new age SABC 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? And Instagram and all the other platforms, like then they start becoming the more kind of affluent kind of platforms, you know. Sean Jordan says use Instagram and social to your benefit. It will build brand. It's about where your audiences are. If you're a brand yourself, use the platform where people are, right?
Yeah.
I'm just reading this for everybody that's just out there with the key people that we should maybe bring in, you know. And then the boy Fade asked the question that is not necessary. He said, "Where the host at Owens?" I just want to see, what are the fundamental, this is from I Am Mamba, what are the fundamental pillars that drive a successful digital and social media marketing campaign?
Okay. I'll answer the first question around SABC versus social media. I think we need to be very careful to make statements in our own place of comfort or privilege. There's still a lot of millions and millions of people that can't even afford that level of data to even be on Facebook. What we call free-to-air or terrestrial TV is still big. SABC is still the biggest TV channel in the country. It brings in millions of people, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. So there's still a place for that. We shouldn't look at ourselves and our friends and friends and assume Facebook is the thing now, or TikTok is the thing now. Yes, it's performing, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to get people to look at things a bit more holistically. And yes, I mean, we've seen Facebook making attempts to start broadcasting sports. We've seen YouTube looking into broadcasting the EPL. I don't think Netflix has plans to do that. The last time I saw some of the talks by their CEO. And as I said earlier, this country has about 63% internet penetration. A majority of that 60% is people that are on social media. So a lot of people's first access to internet here is generally social media. They get a cell phone, if 400 rand or something like that. What are they gonna do? They're gonna download WhatsApp and then maybe Facebook. So he is correct in saying that they are growing quite aggressively. But as SA, they have not surpassed traditional TV as yet. Traditional TV still has a place. It boils down to what you're trying to achieve and who you're targeting. If you're speaking to teenagers or people in their early 20s, yes, internet penetration on those guys is probably higher than 60%. You know, it really depends on who you're trying to talk to. Hence, when we started this conversation, I said a strategy, you need to determine who you're talking to and what you're trying to communicate at the same time. You know, it's something that you need to carefully think about. And then, what was your second question? Sorry, I forgot. The last one?
I was reading other things, but I think one thing I wanted to raise is that someone is asking if let's be honest, is SABC still relevant? Yes, they have numbers, but are they impactful? I mean, I've got an answer, but you can answer that.
Look, I can't really say whether they're relevant. I think we need to ask whether they're relevant or not to who. You know, people follow content than channels. If they still have content that appeals to a certain individuals, those individuals will find the SABC relevant. And then if it doesn't have content for you, then it's not relevant to you. So it's not my place to say, are you looking into building a brand for young people using Facebook on its own? It's a tricky conversation. You need to be very smart and strategic how you build that. However, I don't want to take away from digital. It's very important. Where I work now, one of my biggest KPIs is digital. I think we're living in exciting times at the moment regarding that space.
Now, you see, so for me, obviously, because my response to that is exactly what you were going to say about content. People don't really follow channels per se, they follow content. But what people also need to acknowledge is the same thing that you say about, there's this, I always say that even with influencers and famous people, everybody thinks that like fame is a thing that's only available in Joburg. Do you know what I mean? Or right now, other cities like Durban. But people are not aware that like you got some radio when we talk SABC, we're not talking TV, we're talking radio. You know, there's some shows that people wait for on these platforms, like they are waiting for something on a DSTV, like they are waiting for something on a Netflix. Some people haven't even gotten to a place where they kind of can, like where they've even grasped what catch up is on a platform like DSTV because of the type of income that they have. So those platforms become so relevant. But then you come back as a brand and you go, if that person is not there, can they afford my product? Or what product am I selling to those people also? So I guess relevancy of channel is also very much based on who can buy it here. You know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I mean, and I urge people to research this. Just Google yourself, what's the biggest radio station in SA, you know? And you will find Ukhozi FM there with millions and millions and millions of people that still listen to Ukhozi, you know? And I stand to be corrected. I think it has the highest numbers even in Africa, if I'm not mistaken. And I do stand to be corrected. It is a huge radio station. And if you read more into platforms like the Broadcast Research Council, you learn that a lot of those guys listen to the old school, you know, the box, the actual radio, you know, more than in cars. Then you start asking yourself that, okay, what is my place in this world, you know? because you would automatically assume radio is dead or people don't listen to cause. You know, yeah, maybe you and your circle and me and you on this thing, but there's a lot of people out there that still do consume traditional media.
How is WhatsApp being used to market? And I'll tell you why I asked this. You know, some of the biggest Statamia artists are literally firstly use WhatsApp to promote their music, and they use taxis to promote their music. These guys are guys who fill up stadiums that are like you know, in hip hop, when you fill up a stadium, it's news. These guys fill up like 20, 30,000 stadiums. Of them literally running a huge promotion on WhatsApp. Have brands literally started really like utilizing WhatsApp to the point where you are going, yes, when we talk digital, we're not talking Facebook, Instagram, Twitter only, but we also now considering WhatsApp. And the view I'm getting is that brands are struggling to tap into that space. And I don't know whether it's also the regulations of WhatsApp, but how far is business or brands in that space? Because taxi drivers are, I mean, because that's mere artists are literally like, you know, if I can tell you a story, like Wamaimai, you know, these cats will be hosting concerts, huge ass concerts, and where Wamaimai, it's totally packed like it's a stadium. And you know, because like mostly the audience is the audience where like they can just shoot in the sky and nobody's going to be shook, you know, it's just that type of audience. But one time there was such a huge concert that one of the dudes, and they make money, one of the dudes had to be picked up by a helicopter, right? These guys are bigger rock stars than rappers, and people don't
Yeah,
know this
true.
because it's not in the radio of like mainstream media.
Mainstream
But these
media.
guys
Yeah.
literally have money to, they probably growing up on Unilever products or some other kind of knockoff product, and they probably listening to radio. How are brands moving into that space of market where these guys are selling out stadiums? That means they do have consumers who are buying, you know, except of course the FM.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, we did touch into when I said WhatsApp is one of the first, it is the biggest social media network in the country, and it's one of the first ones that people jump into that didn't have prior experience with digital. So you're 100% correct. I mean, even Go Music, a lot of the tracks underground, the latest Gom track, that's what they use, you know. And the taxi drivers will play it, and if it's jamming there, it probably will be a big track in Durban before it even comes to Joburg. So you are right. But from our perspective, unfortunately, there are restrictions to WhatsApp at the moment. We don't have, I think the platform itself does not allow push advertising in its natural sense, as you would see on about TikTok and these other instant messaging platforms. But for example, like DSTV has self-service as an example, which is, it's a number, you can pay your account, you can ask questions, you can fix error codes, and so forth and so forth, right? It is a marketing tool, right? I've seen even airlines, sometimes when you want to get your boarding ticket, you can just ask them to WhatsApp your boarding ticket, you know? And then the relationship with that brand starts from then on, you know? And I'll tell you one time when, and shout out to Achi, my colleague, I don't think he's here, but he told me about this one thing they did for the World Cup, where they, I think World Cup 2018, they opened a huge WhatsApp group, né? And they invited people to join that WhatsApp group. I don't know if they invited people or people won to be part of that WhatsApp group. And in that WhatsApp group, there were international players in it. So you would find a Ronaldo, you would find I think it was retired players like your Figo and so forth. But imagine during World Cup, knowing that people are always chatting while they're watching sports, you in this WhatsApp group with Paul Scholes, you know? and they also chatting in that group. I don't know how it was controlled, but that is a very powerful marketing tool example that I could think of that made use of WhatsApp.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I wish I did that. I wish I did that, man.
I wish I'd proposed that.
That was great. Winning awards, traveling the world.
Anandaba nama awards ngifuna imali.
Hey,
ama-awards izinto zenu. Corona ngizodla ama-awards manje kuma-corona, kuma-COVID-19. Come on. You know, that's incredible, man. You know, Wandi, look, I think that your insights in the game, man, is just incredible, and your passion for the game and just your interest, you know, to just balance things. People don't respect the fact that, like, even though you can be plugged in culture, it's just so technical to be in the marketing space that you're at, you know, and there's a greater kind of landscape of deliverables beyond just this personality or this medium. It's a whole through the line thing that you have to think of, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I appreciate that, man. And I do want to get to a point where, like, we see more of your work, you know. I mean, I saw you when you were, I can't say I saw you when you were at the bottom, because you've always been at the top, so I'm interested to see where the journey is going to go. But I think in closing, before I even ask more questions, the one thing I wanted to ask you is, where do you see this influencer marketing going and this digital marketing going, and where do you see even media buying going? I mean, are media platforms going to be what we know them as, like, as we've known them as? Because right now you get guys with followers, with engagement, content creators. Is media going to be a bunch of human beings who literally know how to create content in the future, and you need someone in the middle to tell that story or curate it, and that's probably your agency? What do you think the future is going to look like?
Yeah, I think first, thanks, Sia. So as I said, two things. There's art and science, right? From a science piece of media and marketing generally, a lot of it is going to be more personalized. We joke about our identity disappearing and all these brands and products knowing more about us and so forth. But what that will come with is more personalization, where you're getting a lot of advertising purely on your interests and your life stage. A lot of automation is going to start coming through. So automation, even my job is threatened. I'm already starting to think about, hey, will this exist in the next 10 years, you know? Because there's a place for automation where things like artificial intelligence are starting to come in, where brands will start doing things on predicting behavior rather than hoping people would behave in a certain way. So if you track people's behavior long enough, you can start predicting how they will behave, right? And that is one thing. And then from an influencer piece, there's a big gap on how brands can still be built. I think, Mina, if I had to say two things to people that are aspiring influencers and so forth, is you need to prepare with whoever you're going to talk to. Make sure that you know your numbers. Make sure your worth is not it's not subjective. You don't say I'm worth X. You actually have stuff to back it up in numbers, in your consistency, in your attitude, in your history in terms of what you've been posting. Knock on doors. People tend to think Nando's is doing the cool stuff. Get to know who is behind those things on Nando's, you know? Brands take credibility. I mean, they take the credit, but it's normally the agencies that are doing the ideas. Those are the guys that are thinking of the ideas, and people are not generally aware of that. Get to know who's the PR agency, get to know who's the media agency, who's the creative agency, who's the activation agencies, and knock on those doors, right? And get to know who comes up with the ideas, who signs them off, and who approves them. And I think the biggest tip I'd ever give anyone is, should the door be open, try to understand, if you're going to get a chance to sit at Airbnb and speak to a stellar people, whether it's agency or brand, try to understand what their business challenges are, one, what their marketing goals are, two, and what their communication goals are, three. And then propose something. Don't propose before you even understand that brand and what they're trying to achieve. As soon as you understand it, then come up with a solution based on whatever proposition that you have from your end.
Dope. In closing, can I just ask you this? I think there's a gap for agents for the influencer, and I think that influencer marketing is being underestimated. I think there's a gap there's a new agency that literally has to be in between automation and influencers and everything else. And that, in my opinion, is who's landing the story authentically. It's the execution of the story. So like now, if you knew that like your outdoor agency is able to execute properly a banner. Now, if I'm telling a story about someone in Alexandra, and there's like a lot of people in Alexandra who are like similar in Soweto, in Katlehong, in whatever, all of a sudden now, besides automation, the influence in between starts becoming like, how do you land that story authentically?
I'm hungry, bruh. I'm hungry.
No, we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna conclude. You know, I wanted to congratulate you on your wife by holding us down for over an hour. You know, and you've really grown in leaps and bounds. In comparison to where we were last week or 2 weeks ago. I say, Sebong is service provider, providing.
Shout out to Bumatel. Shout out to I think it's Web Africa. I don't know. Shout out. I fixed it just for you.
Thank you. For me and everyone else that literally wants to get this knowledge from me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Fana.
Cool stuff, man. Easy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I just wanted to wrap it up and just say thank you, man. And we'll see you on the road and stay safe. Thanks.
Peace out.
Sure.
Broadcast live